engaging celebrity interviews, exciting updates from Christian filmmakers, movie reviews so you can choose your movies wisely, and so much more here on Faith on Film with Isaac Hernandez and Holly McClure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Faith on Film. Holly, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Isaac. It is the reason for the season once again, and we all know what that season is. That when it comes Easter time and this time of year, we fall to sometimes watching movies that mean a lot to us. If we've watched Christian movies or movies about faith or the resurrection. So This in particular is important for me because it's 20 years, Isaac, since The Passion of the Christ was released.
20 years?
20 years since The Passion of the Christ was released. And I'm not sure there hasn't been more fanfare. I would have thought there would have been like a really big deal to say 20 years, but that's a long time, for being as important of a film as it was. But for those of you who don't know, I had a chance at that time to go with Mel Gibson to Italy for 2 months and do a behind-the-scenes filming for his interviews for the film. And then after that, we took those interviews and created a Making of the Passion of the Christ special, which aired on TBN, and it also at that time was PAX. So had a chance to be there for 2 months and observe and get amazing footage and watch this history being made. It was literally in my mind like being part of NASA or being part of something where you're watching something that is history making. And especially in these days and age, there's not much chances of that. And I just was so blessed to be a part of it. So anyway, I thought let's just do a little behind the scenes glimpse today at some of the things that I observed, and we can show some of the footage and remind people of what a great film this is and a perfect film any time of the year to watch with family or just by yourself. It's been 20 years since The Passion of the Christ came out in February of 2004, just in time for Easter. So I thought it'd be a perfect time to give a nod to a movie that not only set the bar for Christian filmmaking, but it changed the way Hollywood looked at faith-based films and the audience that would support them. Mel assembled an amazing cast. Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus, and in fact was 33 years old, the same age as Jesus was when he was crucified. Monica Bellucci, who played Mary Magdalene, and who Mel said you couldn't make her look dirty or ugly. That woman was beautiful, and just every camera shot of her was gorgeous. Maya Morgenstern, who played the Mother Mary. That was a real find, Mel said. He found her actually when she was acting in a play in another country, and he saw her face in a film that she had done, and he said, "That's my Mother Mary." Along with an international cast who played the disciples. I mean, they came from every country. They came from Spain, France, Germany, all different countries to play these different parts. But again, none of them were really speaking their own language. They were speaking Aramaic. There was an incredible director of photography, Caleb Deschanel. He was the DP for The Natural and so many other amazing movies. He gave the film the look of the painter Caravaggio. And an incredible special effects team was also on hand. Christian Tinsley, who collectively made it the highest grossing religious film worldwide and forever put on our hearts a movie that portrayed Jesus' last 12 hours on earth in The Passion of the Christ.
Now, Holly, it was such a wonderful thing for you, wasn't it, to be able to be a part of this movie? How did that happen?
It was. And just seeing that trailer just reminded me of how beautiful that movie was and how many experiences I had on set and how many things I actually saw being filmed. And I mean, who doesn't remember where you were when The Passion came out? I know you were at TBN, Isaac, at that time. It was a big deal, to have that film and be involved and the little part that we were, but it was fun. Well, at the time, I was doing movie reviews for TBN. I was also and doing those freelance. I was with a big radio station in Los Angeles, and on television, on Politically Incorrect and different shows as a Christian film critic and commentator, and also written for the Orange County Register. So there was a lot going on that I was in the movie eye line of, and a partner of Mel's said, "Hey, there's this person, she's a Christian, why don't you have her come in and read the script?" So I got a phone call from his assistant telling me that Mel Gibson would like to see me. I thought it was a prank call at first. I showed up the next day at his studio in Santa Monica, And Steve McAvity, a producer, was also there with him. And he said, I've heard you do movie reviews and you're a Christian and other things. I'd like to get your opinion on what you think if this movie, a little passion project that I'm working on called The Passion, because at the time he was calling it The Passion, a little passion project called The Passion that God told me to do, God told me to make. I don't think anyone's going to come see it. I don't think it'll be big. He goes, I'm using my own money because the studio won't support or sponsor it. He goes, but I just want to know what you think. And I said, okay, well, sure. Of course, I'm pinching myself. Mel Gibson. I'm talking Mel Gibson. And so I'm watching him. He goes, yeah, okay, the moon will come up. And, he's talking about playing out each scene. And he talks really about pretty much the storyboard for going through what's going on. He had a storyboard on the table. We looked at the storyboard. He said, I'm going to be in Italy in a couple of weeks. I'll give you a call. I'm going to leave a script with you. I want to see what you think about it. I'm like, well, okay. I, didn't think there's anything I could change or make adjustments to because it sounded amazing to me. He said, it's going to be in Aramaic. There won't be subtitles. I'm saying, you're going to have subtitles. And he's like, no, I'm not going to. People will know the story. So it was really interesting from his very devout Catholic background and very devout Catholic perspective. He did not know about Christian media. Mm-hmm. He didn't know that there was the James Dobson and Focus on the Family and the Greg Laurie and Harvest Crusade. And I was mentioning these people to him and said, we could use them to promote the movie. And he said, oh, great. That's great. Who's that? And every person he was like, who's that? And I finally said, you have no idea, do you, how big the Christian market is? He goes, look, I've been in Hollywood for 20 years. This is the world I've known. He goes, that's why I called you in here to tell me what you think and share some insight. And I said, well, there's a bigger world than even the Catholic press out there. So you're going to be amazed at how popular, and this is going to be huge. It's just going to be huge. And he goes, okay, so I'll call you in a couple of weeks. And he did. And when he called me, he said, what did you think of the script? And I gave him a couple of suggestions, which we're going to be showing.
Let me interrupt you for just a second here, because you just said it was in Aramaic. How did you read the script? He wasn't going to do subtitles. How did you read this? Do you know Aramaic?
Well, the script was in English because he said he would have an Aramaic translator go over there. And the translator would teach all the actors the English script. So he had that script so that everyone knew what they were supposed to be saying. And then they had an Aramaic translator there on set to translate with each person, each actor actually, and teach them how to say that line in Aramaic. Because again, remember, people from France and Spain and Germany, and they're all speaking their own language. And then everyone has to learn Aramaic, a dead language that nobody knows.
Right.
So then everyone had to learn that. And that's how they were speaking to each other on set. And so it was very confusing at some times. It really was, because they didn't really know what they were saying. But yes, no, the script was English. And it was beautifully done, beautiful script. I still have the original one. And he called in a couple of weeks and said, hey, how's it going? What do you think of it? And I said, well, it's going to be amazing, but, there's a couple of changes I would make. And I told him one of them would be you have no flashback of Monica Bellucci. She wakes up with a Mother Mary. Who is she? Is she his wife, his girlfriend? Who is this woman? He goes, well, Holly, everyone knows the story of Mary Magdalene. I said, no, Mel, everyone does not know the story of Mary Magdalene. And not everyone knows the story of Jesus. You're going to have this movie all over the world. So there's some people that have never heard the story before. And that was mind-blowing to him. He goes, well, I just assumed everyone knew the story. And I go, no. So I said, look, it wasn't really the Mary, but I said, a lot of people think it was. But you could have the woman that was going to be stoned. And he goes, I know. I'll draw a finger in the sand, and I'll have Mary reach out and touch my sandal. And it'll be my sandal because Jim Caviezel's not here in town. So I'll use my foot and my sandal, and then I'll reach my hand down and pull her up. And I said, oh, that's perfect. That would be, at least people would get a reference. And then we talked about a few other flashback scenes and things. Since it's only 12 hours, I said, Peter looks like he's betraying Christ. You need to have a scene where Jesus lets Peter know it's okay, because otherwise he thinks he's, people think he's betrayed him. So there was a couple of those details. And then I said, are you going to shoot the behind the scenes for this? He goes, no one's going to care about this movie. No one's going to come see it. I said, no, I really think that you need to shoot behind the scenes and be prepared. So I was the only person I was the first press on set. I was the first person to go over there with a camera guy and shoot the footage that we needed and shoot the different scenes and interviews with Jim and Maya and Monica and, of course, Mel. And it was quite the experience to be at Cinecittà Studios in Rome. And that was a studio where so many amazing movies have been made. And it's a huge, huge lot. And in fact, I'll tell a little bit how next to us was the Gangs of New York, right next to where The Passion was being filmed on that set. So they had a huge 2.5 acres. It was a huge set, live set. So anyway, quite exciting. And guess what? I've got some footage. Let's take a look at some behind the scenes footage and I'll describe what I saw.
All right.
You know, Isaac, let me first say that before we began each day, Mel Gibson would have a Latin Mass performed and communion with a priest that he had flown in from Canada, because if you can believe it or not, at the Vatican at that time, no one was doing a Latin Mass. So he had his own priest flown in. So before he went on set, he was prayed up, whether it was a morning shoot or a night shoot. He did Mass and prayer and communion every day. And I never saw him take a drink of wine or anything else during the whole time I was there. When we would go out to dinner and he would be served by different people, he never did drink anything. I just want people to understand he had prepared his heart to direct this movie. And that was, I think, an important part of why it did go so well. One of the reasons The Passion of the Christ was so popular was the writer and director, and of course that was Mel Gibson. He did both. He wrote and directed it. It was an art watching Mel direct each scene. I mean, since he's an actor, he instinctively knew what would make the best angles, lighting, action. He would literally act out each scene with the actors and put so much energy into it that he would be exhausted at the end of the day, because it's as if he had performed all those roles. I mean, even down to the soldiers and the extras, everyone. He would put everything into it to show what they should do with their part. And because he put everything into those scenes, he was, tired at the end of the day, but all of the actors really respected him for that. I mean, they appreciated him doing it because he's an actor's actor as well as a director. Now, as the director, he was open to ideas for the script. You know, I shared with you how he asked me what I thought about the script. I told him what he needed for a scene, and that explains who Mary Magdalene was. I told him he could use her in that scene with the woman getting stoned. He said, I know, I'll draw a line in the sand. And we actually taped him doing that, drawing the line, having Monica reach out for his sandals for his foot, his ham going down. Now, they switched, of course, Jim's face out when Jim came into town and used that scene. But that's how great of a director Mel was. He was open to other people giving him ideas, giving him suggestions. He wanted to do things with excellence. And if it was your idea, that's okay. If it made it excellent, that was important to Mel. Mel worked with an international cast, so the language barrier was a bit of a problem for some of the actors. Many spoke English, but some didn't. Plus, they're all, like I said, learning to speak Aramaic, which wasn't easy for many of them. So there was an interpreter on set to make sure that the language was spoken correctly. It was very costly and time-consuming because it took extra time to get people to understand what they were supposed to be doing or saying, especially the extras. And like the temple scene and some of those scenes that involved people yelling and the crowd yelling, they didn't understand what Mel was saying. I mean, Steve McAvity was a producer, like I said. He was also there by Mel's side to help him. Many of the extras were from Italy, so it was funny because they had to have this interpreter on set holding up signs and giving them directions of when to laugh, when to say, ooh, when to... So they had to put the comments in big signs so that people could read the signs and know what to say, since they couldn't hear Mel or didn't understand him. Many extras treated Jim like he really was Jesus. I mean, they would run up to him and get on their knees and touch him and ask him to bless them. And he would say, I'm not Jesus, I'm just an actor. But they would bow to him or they would bow as he walked by. It was really interesting to watch how he treated them and they treated him. It was in a relationship there. Mel worked with the well-known DP Caleb Deschanel, and he had a brilliant vision for this film. They filmed the Garden of Gethsemane betrayal scene inside a soundstage at Cinecittà Studios so that they could get that blue nighttime effect. They also used the outdoor Jerusalem set that they built on the studio lot, which ironically was next to the remains of Gangs of New York that Martin Scorsese had just finished. Now, many may remember that Martin Scorsese directed the 1988 flop, The Last Temptation of Christ, which many Christians protested. I mean, a lot of people were upset because it was, of course, completely anti-religious, anti-anything the real story, and it was blasphemous. So, you know, a lot of people did not like that film. So I jokingly said to Mel, well, you know what? God has a sense of humor. He put the Passion set as a symbol of victory next to Scorsese's Gangs of New York. And Mel liked that. He thought that was funny. Some of the scenes of Jesus carrying the cross were filmed at Cinecittà Studios in Rome, and you could see where they looked like he was going through the city. But Jesus on the Cross was filmed in southern Italy, in a city called Matera. It's an ancient city, still today. It's just carved out in the hills of Matera, and there are actually caves all throughout the hills and surrounding the city, where people lived at one time in those caves. Well, this is the place where the cross scenes were filmed, where Jim was in fact struck by lightning when he got off one of the crosses and rain was coming in, and an assistant had an umbrella over him, and the lightning hit the umbrella, and that was right after he got off the cross. And he caught pneumonia by being on the cross for hours. I mean, it was freezing. It was wintertime, and he's there in a loincloth. And when you see him shaking in the movie, that's true. That's exactly what his body was doing. He was literally shaking. Horrendous conditions that he went through for several days in a row. In fact, it cost him physically. He had to take a break for a week or two just to get his health back. Another thing that put the Passion on a whole different level was the special effects, the makeup and the costumes. Jim went through 3 to 4 hours of makeup, wigs, scars, clothing, everything to get ready to play that role every day. Because remember, the story takes place the last 12 hours of Christ's life. So there were weeks of having to wear the scars and the blood just to portray the incident that happened in one day. Christian Tinsley was the special effects guy who used techniques that had never been done before. It was the first time. It was groundbreaking in the industry of special effects, what he used to do the scars on Jim's back. Mel knew it would have to look real or it would ruin the movie. The special effects are what gave it the R rating, which was for the first time a Christian film that would have that rating, causing some people to give pause. Some people didn't even want to see it because it looked so real. But it was important to Mel, he said, by the time I'm done and you see what Jesus looks like before and after he's crucified, when you see him in the tomb at the end, you'll know he's the Christ. And you did, by everything that took place in that, on all the special effects. He had a nose, he had scars put on him, the fake blood, everything, like I said, was brand new for what they were doing. Even the nails in his hand was how they did a fake hand to put a nail in there and make it look like it was Jim's hand. It was amazing to watch. The wigs and beards looked real, which was a big issue for Mel, to make sure that there weren't bad wigs and bad hair like he said all the other biblical movies have. So the best of the best were brought in to do their work. In fact, in one scene, when Jesus was being whipped, the whip accidentally went through his padding and cut his back. And Mel asked Christian to take a look at it and recreate how that real whip mark looked on Jim's back so that the other ones would be realistic. He said, the ones you made don't look like this one. This is a real whip mark. I want you to make the other ones like this. So they had to go remake all those scars. So again, Jim went through great amounts of discomfort and real pain to play the role of Jesus. He suffered for that role, which made him appreciate a fraction of what Jesus went through. He always said it was nothing what I went through compared to Christ, but it gave him a sense of understanding what he went through. So that's just a little bit about what I saw, and hopefully you'll take a look at The Passion of the Christ and watch it with all new eyes and all new appreciation.
Holly, not only was that amazing footage, but just the way you explained everything, I think really told us a great story that I almost feel like I was there in the behind the scenes of what was going on.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me share. I just think it's kind of fun for people to know what really went on, in making that movie, and so much more to tell even, but it was a great experience. Talking about another great movie that you and I both love, but we really haven't talked about it much, is the movie everyone's kind of talking about, Cabrini. So let's talk about that, Cabrini, and let's show the trailer.
All right, let's show the trailer, and then we'll come back and just share all about what we feel about Cabrini.
I see trees of green,
Dear reader,
red roses too.
New York is built upon the dead.
I see them bloom for me and you.
I tuoi genitori, Paolo?
And I think to myself,
Mio papà si è suicidato
what a wonderful
e mia mamma è morta di tifo in carriola.
I see skies of blue and clouds of white.
padre. Un telegramma. Dal Vaticano.
If I made you the first woman ever to lead an overseas mission, the whole world would look to you as proof of what woman can or cannot accomplish.
If we are to build an empire of hope, my sisters, it seems we must first conquer New York.
Welcome to America.
You let a woman push you around, an Italian woman. Is that how you run your church?
Che le camere trovino un punto di incontro.
Signori, aprite i vostri cuori.
You want to leave New York and never return? Who the hell do you think you are?
I am a woman, and I am Italian. And we are all human beings. We are all the same.
It's a shame that you're a woman, Mother. You would have made an excellent man.
No, men can never do what we do.
That looks like another amazing movie.
It is. I love Cabrini, and I've seen it like 3 times now. I've seen it with other people, and because I wanted to see their reaction, I was so excited to see it. And the 2 other people I've been with to see it, both were just enamored with this movie and walked out of there. And I wanted to get their reaction, Isaac, because it was important to me. Because when they walked out, I said, okay, what'd you feel about it? Did you feel that it portrayed a Christian perspective, but yet, had a message of other things? And everyone came out saying, I feel like I should be doing more for the kingdom. I feel like there's more left in me, that God has not finished with me yet, and that it's not a barrier of how old you are, your health, or anything. And it inspires what God can do with one person. So no one came out there going, well, I wish you would have prayed more, or I wish you would have put in more scripture, or I wish you would have. And I have heard this online and the criticism about that. And hey, different people from different religious backgrounds, we're going to honor that. You're entitled to feel that's what it is about doing movies anyway. It's subjective. You're entitled to feel that way. But I can just tell you, pure comments from people coming out of there that are Christians felt it was so inspirational and wonderful. And every time I've seen it, I see even a little bit more that I missed the first time. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And her lines and things that she said. And Isaac, you have a whole different perspective because, again, she came over as an immigrant legally. Right. And it was legal to come through New York and the aisle and do the whole thing. So that was the perspective of this movie, is coming in and how proud they were to join and be part of America and become American culture. So let's make that real clear at the beginning. And I've also had some complaints.
That was my concern at the beginning when I saw the movie was, okay, is this a pro-immigrant movie? And of course, I was filtering that through the filter of what's happening right now. But it was a whole different way that immigrants were coming in at that time versus the way they're coming in now. There was a different, when I came in, I'm an immigrant. I actually was born in Mexico. We came up to the United States when I was 9 years old. I came in with a green card. So we did it the legal way. I came in as a green card. And you know what? Immediately I immersed myself into the American culture. And I'm very proud. I mean, I love my heritage. I love Mexico. But I am really proud to be an American, which is, very important to me. I have a flag in the front of my house. I almost cry when they do the Pledge of Allegiance. So that was my concern at first, but I'm glad that it really didn't turn out that way. And another thing, though, that I've heard some of these critics say is that it was a feminist movie, that it just portrayed her as a feminist. I never saw that. I did not feel like that was what the movie was saying. It was talking about a lady who had a calling from God and fulfilled that calling.
It was talking about a nun, and even more specifically, a mother who had already had an orphanage in Italy and felt a calling to go out and help children and help. She had a cause and a passion to help. And she said, I want to go where God hasn't reached yet. She wanted to go to China, is where she wanted to start. Right. And the Pope, at that time, the Pope Leo said, well, I'm going to send you to New York, 5 Corners, which probably was like China at that time. Because okay, if anyone saw the movie Gangs of New York, well, right. 5 Corners, that's what 5 Corners was. That's what it was talking about. And at that time, Isaac, when they came in, I mean, they had bad language, bad names for Polacks and Poles and Jews and dykes and cooks. And I mean, there was all that stuff Dago, all those comments. She
Right.
not only had to get beyond them calling for her who she was culturally and nationality, but being a woman, and then she had to overcome that, and not just from the unchurched, but it was the church who was also against her too. So when you say it's feminist, no, it's probably what went on at that time for women fighting for their rights, just to do what she wanted to do, which was kingdom work. It's not like she was trying
Correct.
to she wasn't trying to break up marriages or do anything liberal. I mean, she was trying to help children that were literally, the rats had it better than the kids in New York. They were underground and helping. So,
Right.
and again, I want to reiterate that I love what you said about your heart to be in America and absorb and become and be proud of America. And that's what we wish the immigrants were today. Not just to come in and use
Right.
this country to make money and get a job and send back home, but to come in and be proud to come in and be part of the culture, which at that time, that's what she was. She said, we'll speak, the first 20 minutes are in Italian, I think, and then she says, we'll speak English.
I love that.
Did you love that?
I
just
love that. She said, we're going to speak English now. Because, when I came, I didn't go to a school where they continued to speak to us in Spanish here in America. I went to the school where I either had to learn English or I don't know what would happen. Do you know that within 3 months, I was speaking fluid English?
Oh my, fluid. And I can't speak any Spanish, and I've heard people speak it for years and years. So there you go. Look at you. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's not forget to mention hats off to Alejandro Monteverde, who directed
Yes.
Sound of Freedom. He directed this movie, and this movie is gorgeous. I went with Paul Cox
It
Jr.
is.
and Brenda, and Paul was like, this is the most gorgeous film. He went on and
It
how beautiful the shots were and how beautiful it was filmed. So if you want
Yes.
to beautifully film, it looks like The Godfather kind of. And then Christiana Della Anna, who plays the title Mother Mary, and she plays Cabrini, Mother Cabrini. I'm telling you, she just did the most gorgeous job, an amazing job. She really did. And the children and so many things about it.
It was great.
We have to mention David Morris plays an archbishop, and John Lithgow plays the mayor, and I love John Lithgow too. And Giancarlo Giannini, who was also part of it. Anyway, great film. We encourage all to go see it. You will be uplifted, and don't worry about it being any feminist or anything. It's a beautiful film. You'll miss out if you don't go see it.
Right, absolutely. Well, Holly, another wonderful show today.
I love it. We've got happy reason for the season, and for those of you who are watching this after, hope you're blessed by today's show.
That's right. Hey, we want to invite you, by the way. I mentioned it last week. Our new website is up and running now, so we want to invite you to go to our website, faithonfilmtv.com. faithonfilmtv.com. We've got lots of wonderful things there, including Holly on Hollywood segments.
All right. Yay.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Write to us at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Faith on Film TV. Also, go to our YouTube channel, Faith on Film TV, and hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications on our latest Faith on Film shows.